Welcome to the Weekly Pivot, July 27th, 2025. So we're going to talk about upcoming events. We went through those last week as well for this week. There's a lot of stuff going on this week. It's quite a busy week. We'll talk about the July rate cut probability. We talked about that last week as well. Go over SPX seasonality. I think that's largely been exactly what we've been looking for a bullish July. And then we can go over analysis, kind of what we've been talking about the last 2 weeks. Largely everything that we've discussed is materialized. And then we can talk about kind of what we're looking for into the end of July and potentially into the beginning of August. So on Tuesday, we've got consumer confidence and JOLTS job openings. Wednesday, we've got non-farm employment, GDP for Q2, Fed rate, interest rate decision on Wednesday afternoon, and of course the Powell press conference to follow. And then after hours, we've got Microsoft and Meta earnings. Thursday, we've got PCE, which of course is the Fed's preferred inflation metric. That'll be important. We've already seen the CPI a little bit warmer than expected, so it will be interesting to see what happens with PCE. And then on Thursday after hours, we've got Big Apple and Big Amazon earnings as well. 4 Mag 7 earnings this week. Last week we had Google and Tesla, and now we've got 4 of the other 7, and of course Nvidia's later. Then Friday we've got the tariff deadline, non-farm payroll, and ISM data. So there's a lot of stuff going on this week, and there might be potentially some volatility. Market participants might be waiting to see what happens before they make the next move. So here's the rate cut probability. I've actually inverted the colors so that it's not blinding your eyes. Nothing's really changed here. We've got likely case that there's going to be no cut this week. Let's take a look at SPX seasonality. We've been looking at this for the last couple weeks. July is bullish. You can see right here. It's a very bullish month typically, and this month has been no different. I think when we started this, we were up a little under 1%. Now we're almost 3%. And we're hitting the targets that we were looking for. We'll go through that as well. But I think the next 3 months, things start to look a little bit less straightforward, and I think there will be opportunities to play both directions on a short-term basis. Recently, we've had very much a bullish higher time frame that's kind of pushing price higher, and we're moving towards upper targets for some of the setups that we have on bigger time frames. Speaking of that, so this is from our chart from episode 1 that I've just sort of dragged over so we can kind of see where we're at and what we discussed before. So this daily IHS, we're still looking for a 6,500 minimum. I think the upside is still somewhere 6,800 to 7,000 potential trend continuation, but I think there'll be some bigger dips. I think there'll be some bigger pullbacks before we get continuation to levels like that. We were looking for the 6,150 to 6,200 dip, based on this really nice bullish trend. We got that a week ago. We got that here, and then we got nice continuation last week. We were looking for a target of 6,350 to 6,400, and we got it. Strong daily trend continues. You can see that dips have been bought since we got above the daily 21. So some things to note. Trend is strong. Best not to fight it. We discussed. On this pullback, not looking for swing setups to the downside. Intraday, it's perfectly fine. You can catch this. I caught that as a day trade. But if you're positioning for swings, the easier side is going to be on the long side for now until we start to see things change on higher time frames. Now, that being said, we are getting to the top of the range, the PO and the daily, and typically you'll see some pullbacks somewhere around there. I think we still have some room to operate, and certainly on the weekly we have plenty of room to operate. I think we're only in the 60s. That's what I'm looking for is, we maybe a little bit of sideways or continuation this week, depending on the volatility that, or what happens during this week. We'll see how much it could shift things, but we're getting up there. So, of course, if you got in here or if you got in here, you should be scaling out of your positions. So this is a chart from last week. This is the 4-hour candles with the daily ribbon and swing levels. And last week we were talking about this swing long trigger pivot, which ended up holding last week, which was really nice. And we also talked about these 4-hour compression signals, and our speculation was that the trend should continue. Everything's been pullbacks and then continuation, pullback, continuation, pullback, continuation, pullback, continuation, pullback, continuation. So, we got the same thing here, pullback, and then continuation. Of course, as you guys all saw this week, we got the bullish expansion, we got continuation, and we hit our targets. Now, a couple things that are interesting to note, daily trend continues to hold. We keep holding the 1321 zone. Last week, we really just kind of barely tapped the daily 8 before we continued higher. And of course, we held this long trigger pivot, which is kind of an important level. So 6290, 6300, very important pivot on the month. And we did last week tap the swing golden gate. So, that gives us a potential opportunity to go up to 6430 by the end of the month. Our target was 6,400 by end of the month, and I think we're largely there. And, bullish expansion, if we go a little bit higher, maybe into the extremes, the 4-hour PO, we certainly can push a little bit higher. We can even get all the way up to 6,500. That's definitely possible. But, we're getting close to a point where there might be another mean reversion coming up soon. That's kind of what I'm looking for into this week. I'm actually on vacation this week, so I won't be around. But good luck if you're trading this week. And there's a ton of news, so make sure you manage your positions accordingly. And I will see you in the next weekly pivot.